die young, bad girls do it well. Live fast, die young, bad girls do it well. Live fast, die young, bad girls do it well. Live fast, die young, bad girls do it well. My chain hits my chest when I'm banging on the dashboard. My chain hits my chest when I'm banging on the radio. Get back, get down, pull me closer if you think you can hang. Hands up, hands high. Don't go screaming.
There's a gender and society class, but if you look at like world history, if you look at not just like the different types of world history, like before modern and then now modern, and if you look at U.S. history, we don't learn about the important women who have shaped our history. We don't learn about the women scientists that like helped discover like all these great things, like Franklin, who helped find like DNA and the structure of DNA.
Did find the structure.
Yes, the two men were like, nah, we found it, and they took it from her, and we don't learn about these important women in our lives, and women don't have these role models in like science, in history, and like politics when they should have it. We should learn about it.
So general everyday thing, you can find it in, jokes, and you could probably find it everywhere and anywhere. Just because, like, oh, that's like, that's like, even like saying everything is jokes and humor, like, is mildly offensive, could usually include sexism. Some of the way, like, we gossip, the way we talk about people, the way we criticize people, or like define people and categorize people, it has a lot to do with sexism. The way we see certain people, for example, like I would see like a guy in school saying something that is sexist, for me that would just be like, I put him in a category of someone that I don't want to be friends with, I don't want to know really well. It's all that kind of like goes together.
In my APUSH class, girls talk a lot less than guys do. And guys just kind of talk out. Like, if we're having a discussion, guys feel free to talk and they know that other people will listen to them. But girls always are quiet and raise their hand, and so they end up talking less. And girls are always a lot more like quiet and respectful and don't want to get angry. And guys are willing to fight.
My physics class is an example. There are 21 boys, or people who identify as male, and 4 people who identify as female. We have a male teacher. We had a discussion about gender. It took 7 male voices to speak before a female voice spoke. I think that's self-explanatory. We're having discussions about women in science, and you have 7 guys speak before a female does. That's an issue.
Something that's hard for me being in there, I think, is that there's a lot of what are called microaggressions that occur, where there are definitely members of the class who are male who they'll only argue back against a girl's point, whereas they'll always support a boy's point, or they'll say that's a good point, but versus being very cutting.
Every single day I hear the word hoe, bitch, slut, etc. So all different types of slut shaming, as well as just basic interactions, and people's mannerisms change when they are speaking to women. So just like condescending comments like sweetie or honey or various things that just are not okay.
A lot of male teachers think they can like call like female students honey or sweetheart, or like sort of talk to them in a very sort of gross way. I think a lot of sort of what Deirdre was already saying, that male voices really dominate. Like, you'll have men and women speak equally, but the men will think that the women dominated the conversation just because they didn't speak more. I think in a lot of your science and math classes, your higher science and math classes, the men get to answer more, and it's sort of not necessarily malicious, but it is happening, and therefore it is harmful.
I'm a very outspoken person, and I know like my biggest struggle with like feminism and sexism and all this kind of stuff is that because I'm so outspoken and I see boys my age who are equally outspoken and they don't get called out for it, and I do because of my gender, that's an example. And I'm considered like loud or bossy or forceful. And maybe I am those things, but I also know boys who are the exact same way and don't get treated like I do.
The fact that there's always this like kind of cult of genius surrounding like quiet, sciencey boys versus girls who may be interested in the humanities, who are more bubbly and enthusiastic. Like, I'm assumed to not be as smart as them because of my gender and how I choose to present myself, and that's wrong. And I've definitely felt that if I'll make a point during this discussion, people won't necessarily listen to me, or they'll look at their friends. Like, if I make one mistake, instantly my whole credibility is compromised. If they make one mistake, it's, oh, haha, it's so funny that they made a mistake, because we all know that they're like the genius science boys.
If you're playing sports, like, you won't ask like girls to play with you, or just like guys like thinking that like they're superior to women. Like, I don't know, like driving, like people will just make like snide comments like about stereotypes, like women aren't as good drivers or stuff like that. Yeah.
Trying to think. Guys being laughed at for wanting to do drama, or like being dissuaded for wanting to do drama, or girls not wanting to play football because of being a girl.
Or guys having a negative reaction when I told them that I was going to be playing a woman in the musical. That sort of like, oh, why would you want to play a woman? And I was like, well, she's a character.
My definition of feminism is someone who believes in, a feminist is someone who believes in equal rights and opportunities for both men and women. I absolutely consider myself a feminist because I absolutely believe in equal rights and opportunities for men and women. There are misconceptions because there's an interesting history to the women's rights movement in the late 20th century. Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem and their followers, both men and women, in the 60s and 70s really established and pushed equal rights for women in the workplace, in educational institutions. And then there was a mainstream movement, and then there was more of a radical movement too, both of them very important to advancing women's rights. But some of the more radical folks were seen as, and maybe inappropriately so, a little too extreme, and so attracted negative attention for people who were threatened by the movement. Sexism at the school and gender stereotyping. In a way, that's hard to answer, but here are some of the things that I see and that I wish were different. I see mostly boys in engineering classes, but some girls, which is great, and I want more girls to be in the engineering classes. I see the dance program, which is wonderful, as almost all girls and a couple of brave boys come around into those classes, which is excellent because they're good dancers. So that some of our programs are lopsided, I worry about a little bit. When I go into an AP European History or AP Physics class of late, those are lopsided toward boys. Really great guys in those classes. It would be great to see those more gender balanced, actually. And I know that the AP Physics classes recently have been really addressing, the two male teachers who teach AP Physics have really been addressing that topic with their students and getting the boys and the girls to talk about why in one of the top science classes at Brookline High School it's lopsided. I think that in athletics and our teams, there's some gender stereotyping that I worry that there are some assumptions that the girls' teams in some areas can't be as good or won't be as good as the boys' teams. The athletics director does not believe that, but I worry that that can be a subtle undercurrent, and it's something that we watch and I watch and we want to address. I think a lot of the changes that may need to happen has to do with encouragement of both boys and girls, young men and women, to strive for the top classes that they want to be in, be encouraged that they're going to have the support in AP Government, AP European History, AP Physics, the tougher courses. There needs to be, and I know there is, a supportive words for boys to opt into the dance classes, again, which are awesome, and the girls for engineering. I think a lot of it has to do with faculty, because kids are mostly connected to the faculty. Less so to the headmaster, because I don't see them day in and day out. Less so to their deans, less so to their counselors, although they really trust their counselors. I think it's the faculty who need to support and encourage girls to head into engineering courses and to try it out and take those over. So there are a couple of things that I really like over the last few years. In the Sagamore, there have been a number of articles about feminism, about equal rights between the genders. There have been articles and discussions in the school that have picked up on interesting issues like dress code and the perception of the students of the inequitable application of the dress code to between girls and boys. And I think it's a fascinating conversation. I think what I've seen in the dress code conversation is sort of a generation gap, whereas the teenage BHS students, girls in particular, have one interpretation of the dress code and proper dress and how they can dress themselves. And the older folks, which I would include myself, have another interpretation of that. And I'm really interested in that discussion, and I'm actually learning a lot from the students on that topic. I sat with a student at the end of last year. She had done her SWS paper, final paper, on dress code and body shaming of girls, and I learned a lot from her on that. I don't think that the administrators, the adults, and the students on this topic, I don't think we've met in the middle yet. I don't know yet, actually, I'll say as headmaster, what the right answer to that is. So I'm learning a lot. That's an interesting topic that's here.
Okay, so my freshman year here at the high school, I was in a class with a female teacher that I really, really respected. So, during this time, like, everybody goes through puberty, during this time, like, my chest grew considerably, which is what happens, like, kind of overnight. And I just got this really weird response from her. Like, I didn't go out and buy myself a whole new wardrobe. Like, I was still getting used to, like, being in my body and kind of, just, like, grappling with the actual physicality of it. And she pulled me aside one day and she said, I just want to protect your decency, and essentially told me that I was showing too much cleavage and that she didn't want me to get bad attention from the boys. And the way that it was all phrased was that, she was trying to help me. And that was very confusing, because if she was trying to help me, why did I suddenly feel so alienated and uncomfortable within my own body? Because every single day she would pull me over and say it again, even if I was wearing a shirt that went up to here. Like, I would put on sweatshirts, like, before class, and sometimes she would still say, like, I'm sorry, that's my body. Like, I don't know where you want it to go. It can't go anywhere. Like, it's there. But the way that the implications of what she was saying, like, I think definitely still stick with me in my body image, in that, like, there's something fundamentally wrong with your body, or something that will always implicate you in anything that happens to you because of the way that your body looks and the way that you choose to present it. What was wrong with it was that instead of taking a look at the society, like, was sexualizing me as a 14 and a 15-year-old, like, sexualizing a minor versus questioning the society that is forcing you to sexualize a minor.
I think that many of the myths surrounding feminism are created by men who have not checked their own privilege yet. I think men feel that they are threatened in a masculine sense if they want to call themselves a feminist, because the term is associated with feminine qualities. And I think in a society ruled by the patriarchy, men don't have the ability to show feminine qualities because they're assumed to be weaker, and which is not correct at all. But due to the patriarchy, men can't show a feminine side.
I agree with that, and I also think that a lot of people who don't identify as feminists really don't understand what feminism is. I feel that if the definition, which is not matriarchy, which is just that men and women are equal and that no gender should have any benefits as opposed to the other one in societal interactions, I think that if more people knew that it was truly about equality, then I think that more people would be willing to support it.
I mean, it's sort of like when you play the game telephone. Like, when one person says one word, as you go around the circle, it changes. And so I feel like that's what happens. And so, you know, one person, the original person who will tell you what feminism is will probably, hopefully, tell you the right definition. But then as you go along, it gets morphed into something different.
A lot of the times I'll try to be sharing my experiences with like sexism and discrimination because of gender, and they'll try to invalidate it. And I think it's because, like, first of all, no one ever wants to admit that they're a part of the problem. Like, no one wants to be like, yeah, I'm sexist, yeah, I contribute to sexism. But they do, and I think acknowledging that means that they wouldn't have that type of power over me. Like, their gender doesn't mean anything in terms of having power over me. So, you know, I get shot down a lot, but I think it's important that, like, I mean, I'm still gonna keep fighting back, because, like, I know it's important.
Well, I think I just think when people think of the word feminism, they for some reason automatically think that, like, oh, like, women more than men, when that's just not the case. And I think while there is a very small portion of feminists who are, like, I guess you could say, like, anti-men, like, that's, you can't just say feminists. One small minority of a group represents the entire group.
I think that guys get really scared of the word feminism because one of the image that feminists get in popular culture, and two, because when many women say, like, men are this, men are that, a lot of guys can't help but feel like they're being targeted, and even if they want to care, they find it hard to care. And, like, obviously there are men who are at fault for misogyny, but, like, grouping them together happens, but it makes it kind of hard to care about something like that, especially as a guy. And there are many guys out there who want to care about feminism, and so they're kind of on the fence and they're deciding how to take action. But when they hear constantly over and over that men are pigs, men are oppressive, they feel discouraged, and they just, like, feel like they kind of have to feel defensive in a way. And it's kind of sad, but it happens. And so include them in the discussion. That's the only thing you can really do.
Let's think. Because a lot of guys that I know, or people who identify as male, see the word feminist and feel very emasculated and freak out and feel like, oh, it's girly, oh God. And then they don't want to use it. And they want, like, a more, like, word like equalitism or something.
That's my problem, that the term is feminism. It's, you know, very related to being feminine, and in society what the problem is for me is that, like, we stigmatize a lot of things with the word feminine, we associate it with a lot of things. And, well, obviously I'm female, so I do, like, care about that, and I do believe in it's right, but I feel like if we were to find a different term to make sure it's more inclusive, a term that is, you know, allows men or who believe in the same goals as feminism, who are supportive of feminism, to feel like they're not, you know, going against their own gender or all that, like, other crap.
Yeah, well, it's just like, I don't like that word because, like, no, yeah, I think that, like, it shouldn't be called feminism. It should be called, like, equalism or something, you know? Feminism is just, like, I feel like girls are just like, fuck, man. Yeah, feminism comes off too strong. It should be, like, I feel like feminism makes it sound like it's only for women to be excited about, you know? Equalism is, like, everyone can be excited about equal rights for genders, you know?
I am very strongly consider myself a feminist.
For me, I'm not sure if I can necessarily consider myself feminist. I do believe in equal rights for both men and women, but I would more like consider it equal opportunity more than feminist, because I advocate for both sides more than just one side. I believe that it should be equal, and we should not ignore half of the story, ever.
You're viewing feminism as this flawed definition of only supporting women, where in reality it's fighting the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is against anything that has traits deemed to be feminine.
I think my definition of feminism is definitely, you know, first and foremost, equality for all genders and all sexes. But I think also that's, like, very much, like, the foundation of feminism. But I think my personal definition of feminism, it definitely includes the importance of intersectionality, where different issues such as racism, sexism, ableism all intersect, because those are all fundamentally feminist issues, and I would say that also my feminism is definitely trans inclusive, which is something that for some reason is not predominant.
I think feminism has to be inclusive of everyone, including like people who are transgender and people who, and non-binary folks too, because even though their gender like wouldn't fall under male or female or something, or might fall under both or neither or different, every like gender fluid, they like that group of people is still obviously targeted and is a minority that isn't really safe as well.
I think first of all, there's definitely like a strange dichotomy in the feminist movement itself, especially with white feminists, which is feminism that is, it's the mainstream feminism, and because most mainstream things are white feminism is kind of a breed of feminism that can be very exclusive, and it does focus on important issues, but it doesn't always see all sides of things.
Also, we've all heard the 77 cents on a dollar thing. It's actually much worse than that, because that is that's like the average, but for women of color, disabled women, it is much, much lower than that for the same exact work, same hours, and everything.
Like there is currently in our society, we have like wage gaps, and I'm white, so I also have like privilege over like women of color too, because they earn like even less than I do per the dollar, like compared to a man's, and I think that's ridiculous and dumb.
Feminism is the strive for gender equality.
Feminism is gender equality.
Definition of feminism is supporting women, I guess, increasing their equality and pushing to have them have a more level footing amongst the men-centric world that I guess is a lot better than it was before, but still needs a lot of improvement.
I think it's the promotion of equal rights for both genders.
Equality for the sexes as well as various genders and people of various gender expressions.
Well, it would be the equality of the genders, but I also sort of look at it as sort of a movement for basically everyone, sort of a movement towards equality for economic, for social, for political reasons. But mostly it's for the, I guess, making people who identify as female more equal to those who identify as male.
I think it's really important that that feminism is just all-inclusive, and that it includes, like I said before, people of all races and religions and backgrounds and sexualities, because like that's so important. And we tend to sweep people under the rug a lot and just ignore them, and I don't think that's really fair.
There are lots of issues that I care about, like racism and stuff, and I don't think anyone really deserves the privilege to choose between what problems they care about. If you care about racial equality, you don't have a right to not care about gender equality either.
Hell yeah. I consider myself a feminist. I think that if you believe that people of all genders should be treated equally, then you are a feminist. I think that there's a difference between calling yourself a feminist and being actively feminist, but you can totally be a feminist just from your like set of beliefs.
I do now, based on the definition. I used to not consider myself a feminist because I guess I don't like to label myself, and I feel like there shouldn't be sexism, and shouldn't exist, and like the fact that men make more money than women is pretty ridiculous, and so I don't even like to buy into that, even though it's a thing that's happening and people have to fight for it. So originally I didn't really want to label myself because I feel like I shouldn't have to. There shouldn't have to be feminism because we should already be equal. But I do now.
I consider myself completely a feminist because I believe that men and women deserve equal rights and are equal in every way.
I definitely consider myself a feminist. I think that men definitely suffer from the effects of the patriarchy just as much as women do in many ways, and that by reducing the effects of the patriarchy, we can help to create true equality of the sexes.
Absolutely. Because I support people's rights, because I support a housewife who chooses to stay at home and work with to stay with her kids, for a woman who chooses to never have children, even for a man who is being put down by masculine conceptions of society. Like, it's like not even, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hell yeah. Because I'm a good person, and to be a good person, you need to be a feminist, because you need to believe that women aren't second-class citizens.
Yes. Why? Well, we live in a society today where women are demoralized on a daily basis, and we're considered a minority when, in reality, we're 50% of the population. Well, like, yeah, 51, there's more women in the world than men. And so we're treated terribly just because we have a different sex or a different gender. And that's just, like, plain wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That's good.
Who's bad? To the kiddie in a jacko hat, to the kiddie in a Rooney shirt, dragging back the curtains in the room in her daddy's flat. A young girl heard the truth in an alley cat howling on the roof next door. Imagine that all your idols were just like you. Nothing's beyond you. Do what you want to do if you feel that it wants you to. Look, true never meant nothing more than it means right now, and everything's fake. But you and your deepest reaches, keeping secrets, know what it takes to make